And I'm going to pull up this PowerPoint presentation. So today we're going to focus our webinar on outlier detection. Identifying anomalous value in the real-world database is important both for improving the quality of the original data and for reducing the impact of anomalous value in the process of knowledge discovering in database. Such anomalous value given useful information to the data analyst is in discovering useful patterns. Through isolation, this data may be separated and analyzed. The analysis of outliers and influential points is an important step of regression diagnostics. So in this presentation, our aim is to detect the points which are very different from the other points. They do not seem to belong to a particular population and behave differently. Before I dive into our main focus of our call today, I would just like to refresh everyone refresh y'all's memory on multiple linear regression. Some of you may recall my previous webinar on simple linear regression, which is a method that allows us to summarize and study a relationship between two continuous variables. The webinar has been posted to the Knowledge Center, so feel free to consult the webinar after we're done here today. We move from the simple linear regression model with one predictor to the multiple linear regression model with two or more predictors. That is, we use the adjective simple to denote that our model has only one predictor, and we use the adjective multiple to indicate that our model has at least two predictors. Fair enough. Formally, the model for the multiple linear regression is denoted by this equation right here. You may notice that this equation resembles to the simple linear regression equation to a great extent, only that we added a few more betas and x's in there. Here's the good news. The good news is that everything you have learned about the simple linear regression model extends to the multiple linear regression model here with minor modifications. Think about it. You don't have to forget all the good stuff you have learned. In particular, the models have similar line assumptions. The only real difference is that whereas the simple linear regression, we are only considering one independent variables and one dependent variables, whereas with the multiple linear regression, we have to consider multiple independent variables. Out of the model checking procedures we have learned earlier are useful in the multiple linear regression framework, although the process becomes more involved since we now have multiple predictors. Linear regressions have many practical uses. Most applications fall into a few broad categories. First one is risk modeling. Carl has given a presentation on that 2 months ago, using the multiple linear regression to find the matrix that are statistically significant related to shrink in the retail environment. If the goal is prediction or forecasting or error reduction, let's say, multiple linear regression can be used to fit a predictive model to a observed data set of y and x values. After developing such a model, if an additional value of x is given without its accompanying value of y, the fitted model can be used to make a prediction of the value of y. And as a predictive analysis, the multiple linear regression is used to explain the relationship between one continuous dependent variable from two or more independent variables. So we also use multiple linear regression for more sophisticated modeling like logistic regression, which is similar to linear regression but is suited to models whereas the dependent variable is dichotomous. We introduce Poisson regression when the outcome variable is also numeric but in the form of counts. the aim of Poisson regression analysis is to model the dependent variable y as the estimate of outcome using some or all the explanatory variables. Those are a little bit more sophisticated, but can be used with the multiple linear regression. And so here are the two terms that I really want to highlight in today's presentation. First, what exactly is an outlier? An outlier is an observation that is numerically distant from the rest of the data. It is an observation that appears to deviate remarkably from other points of the sample in which it occurs. We find the outliers using the residual analysis in our later example. Residuals, on the other hand, is the difference between the observed value of the dependent variable and the predicted value. Each data point has one residual. The standardized residual will be the one that tells you the most story about your regression. However, the standardized residual is a measure of the strength of the difference between the observed and the expected value. Generally, we want all standardized residual to be less than the absolute value of score. So some uses for the residual analysis includes validating model accuracy by using graphical residual analysis, like looking at the residual plot, or using numeric method like the lack of fit test. Through the validation of model accuracy, we can look for patterns in the errors, assess whether the residual is consistent with the random error. We can also look for points with high leverage. Sometimes in regression analysis, a few data points have disproportionate effects on the slope of the regression equation. So if a point has such a great influence on the overall regression model, it may not be valid to include the observation when we're trying to paint the general picture here. We can also test for multicollinearity. It occurs when two or more predictors in the model are correlated and provide redundant information about the response variable, which is your y. The one that I wanted to highlight here is the residual analysis helps us to identify outliers, and this is where we'll be focusing on our presentation today. So I'm going to give you an example of how we can use residual analysis to find outliers. Okay, ignore this for now. Okay, here we have a data set about the number of non-received returns that associates issue year to date. So column E is your dependent variable, that's your y here, and we have the associate number 1 to 20. This is a simulated data. So and we also got the department that they worked in, as well as the average number of hours worked per week. Residual analysis can be used to detect dishonest employees just through data analysis. We want to see in this example if any associate is falling outside of the normal range regarding the number of non-received returns they have issued. Looking at this data, if we don't take anything into considerations, and we just look at the number of non-received returns issued by all associates, and look at the distribution of the number of non-received returns, I'm going to do a univariate analysis here and just looking at the distribution of the number of non-received returns here. So what you do is you're going to highlight. So you're going to find out the distribution by making a histogram that will end up looking like this. So you want to go to your data and click on this data analysis. And very quickly, if you don't have this in your Excel, you may want to go to Files, click on Options, and click on add-ins. And here you have manage Excel add-ins. You click go, and you want to check this analysis tool pack, and that way you have to do some data analysis tool pack in your Excel. So soon enough, you can use this data analysis tool pack, and you're going to hit histogram and click OK. Your input range is going to be the distribution that you want to look at. That will be your number of non-receipted returns. So you're going to highlight this. Hold on 1 second. And your bin range, I already have this bin range over here, and I'll tell you where I got those from in just a moment. I'm going to highlight this. And the first column, the first row is my my labels. So I'm going to check labels. And output range, I'm going to put it right here. And I want to see our output. Okay. Sorry. Let me just do this one more time. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm actually gonna, so this is our histogram. You want to delete these gaps in between. So you want to go format data points, and you're gonna decrease the data width to 0. And here we have it. Why is it different from what am I doing? Hold on 1 second. Histogram. Okay, I think might do. Kyle, would you help me out with this one? What am I doing wrong here?
Using Excel would be my guess.
Because I clearly had this one over here. Hold on 1 second. Let me just clear this out. Okay, let me try this one more time. I think I know where I put this one. Okay, here we are. Sorry guys, not really familiar with how to do this in Excel. So you want to delete your, like I said, you want to delete your gaps using, by formatting this gap width and decrease it to 0. And here we have a histogram that looks just like the one that I just computed. And some of you may wonder where I got those bin sizes from to make this histogram. There isn't an equation to show bins, but there are just a few general rules that you want to follow. First, the bins should be the same sizes, meaning the bins should have the same increments. You need to use all data, include any outliers, and using whole numbers whenever possible. And lastly, use about 5 to 10 bins if you can. If you have a small data set like the one I am using right now, you should try to use less bins. I made the bin size to be an increment of 250 just to make it easier to myself. So this is the complete made up of bins. You feel free to use like 200 if you want, 300, it doesn't really matter. So if we want to go back to our data set here, and looking at our distribution right here, we find this person that has 1,350 returns to be a little bit suspicious, associate number 14. So is this person actually a dishonest employee is the question that we try to answer through our analysis today. Other factors we might want to take into consideration here is how long does each associate work each week. As you can imagine, that can greatly influence the number of non-receipted returns that you'll see, as well as the department they work in. We'll probably expect less return in the fine jewelry department, a bit more returns in the coats department, and even more returns in the shirts and pants department. The department of which the non-receipted return is issued is a categorical variable, which means there are no orders to this variable. And because this is a categorical variable, we had to do something different for this variable since Excel can't handle non-numeric values. Here's where some people will make mistakes. They'll just say, oh, since we have 4 different levels for this variable, here, I'm just going to label this 1 to 4, denoting different departments. And that's absolutely wrong, because Excel will take these values. So what some people will do is so they will label the fine jewelry 1, coats 2, shirts 3, and pants 4. Like I said, Excel will treat this as a numerical value instead of categorical value. So here is what we got to do. We got 4 different departments under this variable. We actually need to make up dummy variables. So the number of dummy variables that you need to create for a regression model is always n-1. N being the number of different levels a categorical variable contains. So you want to insert 3 columns here. So let me do this really quickly. You want to insert 3 columns here and create 3 dummy variables for this department variable. So let me see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recode this as fine jewelry dummy, and the next column as coat dummy, and the next one as shirt dummy. So here I'm going to comment the Excel and say FB2 equals fine jewelry. I'm going to let this value equals to 1. Although if that's false, I'm going to let that value equals to 0. I'm going to drag this down. And as you can see, over here, if the department the associate working is in the fine jewelry, this cell will denote 1. If not, the cells will denote 0. So I'm going to do the similar comments to the rest 2 columns. So I say if B2 equals coat 1, if not, it's 0. So if the associate working the coats department, the coats dummy will have a 1 in its cells, and if not, it will have 0. And similar to the shirt dummy, I'm going to denote it, I'm going to commit the cells to do if the B2 equals shirt. It's going to be equal to 1, otherwise 0. So, and here we are. Here is all the dummy variables. Some of you might ask, why is there only 3 dummy variables? whereas there are 4 different levels to the department. The number of dummies that you need to create is always n-1, which is 4 minus 1, which is why I only created 3 dummies over here. And the pens department will be our reference level. And so you'll notice that anything from the pens department will contain 0 across the dummy variables we created. It doesn't appear at all in our regression equation. This is because this is our reference level. So once now we have all the variables taken care of, we can go ahead and conduct a multiple linear regression. Similar to the histogram, you want to utilize the data analysis toolpack, but you're going to scroll down to regression. You're going to hit OK. So your white range is going to be your dependent variable. That's the number of non-received returns year to date. And your X range is going to be everything over here. The dummies and the average number of hours worked per week. I'm going to highlight this whole thing. And you're going to want to check this label because the first column, first row is our label. And you're going to hit residual, standardize residual. I already have everything computed, so I'm just going to move it to the next spreadsheet. So this is what you're going to get for your output. So over here we have the analysis of variance table, denoted as ANOVA. And this is telling you that your dependent variable is statistically significant associated with your independent variable since the p-value is less than 0.05. Down here is the regression equation for the model that I just created. I actually made this up, created this by myself. This is not something that Excel will generate for you, but it's fairly easy to obtain once you have your regression table up here. Basically, just take all the coefficients right here and multiply by the different variables associated with it. This equation is useful if you want to try to predict the average number of non-received returns issued by an associate. If you know the department and the average number of hours worked, they have worked, and plug those numbers into this equation. That is your prediction for the number of non-received return issued. One question that some people would ask is why the coefficient of the fine jewelry over here and coats are negative. If the correlation coefficient is negative, this means that there is an inverse relationship between your two parameters tested. As the number of fine jewelry and coats sold increase, the expected number of non-received return will decrease. As you may probably notice, that this model doesn't include pens department. The pen department is a default in this case, like I mentioned, and the analysis of the pen department is captured in their intercept terms. So if you got a person that works in the pen department, these fine jewelries and coats and shirts will all equal to 0. So this terms all got canceled, and you'll be left with 317 plus 4.5 times the number of hours they worked if they work in the pens department. Now we want to take a look at the standardized residual. That's the last column down here at the residual output. The negative residual just means that the average number of non-received returns for that associate is lower than the overall average. Looking at this output, I would like to single out the associate number 18, which have close to 2.0, which is close to 2.0 standard deviation from the mean, as well as associate number 14. This is the suspect that we identified in our previous univariate analysis. So if you recall your 65, 98, 99.7% rule from a statistic course, I actually have it right here. 2 standard deviation away from the mean is this purple and blue area right here. If your data is normally distributed, 95% of your data should be within the 2 standard deviation away from the mean. If you have something greater than that, then you're looking possibly, very possibly at a outlier. So through this residual analysis, we identified that associate number 14 is indeed our suspect, but we also find another suspect that you probably want to take a deeper look at is our associate number 18, which we didn't find from our univariate analysis. So this is how we use multiple linear regression to identify outliers in your analysis. So now I would like to take this opportunity to open up this presentation to any questions you may have about multiple linear regression or anything that I have done in this example. So feel free to ask any questions if you have.
Hey, this is Kyle here. Just more of a comment than a question. I think it's important to point out the value that we had for associate number 18 in the actual data, where it may not have seemed suspicious in the univariate analysis, but controlling for their department and the amount of hours they work per week, we actually did see that they were returning outside of the normal or what we would expect. So if you actually look at that on the data tab, I think we picked up on 14 pretty quickly there just from the univariate analysis, but 18 didn't strike someone or as nearly as far outside in both the univariate analysis and really within the department as well, where we saw that, you know, another associate was made 700 returns here. So it's just something interesting to point out how you can use multiple linear regression to control for other factors that may have an impact, and that's something that you don't always get with the histogram or the univariate analysis, or even correlation analysis for that example. Sometimes when you only look at one factor, it can either provide a misleading view or maybe not be giving you all the information that you need out of an analysis.
Thank you, Kyle. Anybody have any questions, comments, anything? Okay, now I'm going to turn over to Kyle and see how other retailers may have used this type of analysis in their jobs. Kyle, if you don't mind, I'm going to turn it over to you and have you lead up this conversation.
Sure thing. So there's been a lot of feedback with this group that we need to tie it to more real-life examples of ways that retailers actually use some of these statistical testing techniques within their own environment and how that overall impacted some of the ways that they've been operating. So I just wanted to share a few different examples that I've used this type of analysis for within Bloomingdale's here. So we looked at our product defects, which are products that are returned to the store due to some form of, there might be something wrong with the article of clothing. It may have been shipped to the wrong address. The recipient may have claimed they never received the item. So I looked at the amount that it was costing us by location, and we saw our top 3 stores are for the residual, the standardized residual. 2 of which were our usual suspects, where we pretty much expect everything to go wrong within that particular area. But we actually picked up on a very low-risk store that we, for the most part, didn't pay attention to because we had what we thought no reason to. But when we isolated the residual for that store based on the amount of defect dollars it had, we actually found out that we had a pretty widespread mail fraud issue there that we used this type of analysis to get the ball rolling on an investigation, and we found that there are several people out in California that were routinely doing not receipted item mail fraud. So that was one way that we were quickly and easily able to identify a problem that we may not have seen throughout the histogram type of analysis. I've also used this in our risk model building, which I mentioned on our previous call. And we also do this for the count of returns and return dollars, similar to today's example. We'll look at employees over different departments and different stores and really try to get a handle on what that average return level for particular departments are, so we can set up our exception-based reporting to basically call out these people in these departments with mitigating the amount of false positives that we may receive. So the more false positives that we can reduce, the easier the load is on our investigators. So just as one way that it's also helped us. And residual analysis also helps when you're trying to clean up any sort of predictive model that you're building. So when I was creating our shortage prediction model, I thought I had landed on a good model, and through residual analysis, I saw that there are several stores behaving significantly outside of what we'd expect in several different metrics. So to alleviate the possible bias in these prediction models, I eliminated either the observation or the variable that it was using. You know, it's kind of subjective how you do that, but since we had so few stores, I couldn't really afford to lose another data point in this analysis, so I actually excluded the variable. And one final thing that we've used this for is our loyalty programs, and basically identifying people basing their shopping behavior who's falling outside of the norm in regards to getting more shopping points than those who've spent a similar amount of money. So I was hoping to go around the room here and see, you know, 1, have you used regression analysis, and 2, have you paid attention to your residuals for anything substantial within your locations? So I'm going to go here by alphabetical order on the go-to meeting. So I'm going to start off with Amanda Troxel.
Yes, I haven't used any of this before.
Okay, short and sweet. There's nothing wrong with that. Corey from Location Inc., do you have any examples of how you use your regression and outlier detection in your risk-based models?
Hey, Kyle. No, you know, not personally here, but I look forward maybe some of the retailers might have some examples.
Okay. Dan Flom, Midwest.
No, I'm really more observing, Kyle, than learning here.
Okay, that's nothing wrong with that.
Thank you.
Dr. Spites and Dr. Downs.
We use residuals all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Are part of our normal day-to-day business.
Can you elaborate?
Well, I mean, for outlier detection. So this is a great talk. Good information. So similar to how you guys are describing it is pretty standard for us.
Okay. John Tricka from REI.
Oh, sorry, I had to unmute my mic there. We haven't really had any luck with identifying any, like a set of variables for a shrink prediction. some of you guys might be familiar with the JCPenney presentation a couple of years ago and their workbook that they put together, just trying to use that. But other than that, in terms of exception reporting or finding cases or anything like that, we haven't done anything like this with that.
Okay. Thank you, John. Laura Zane?
No, we have not used it before.
Okay. Linda Chiappone?
Hi. No, in my past life in retail, I did something similar to this, but currently not. But this was very informative, though. I think I'm going to use this with risk scoring. This is really helpful.
Cool. Can you elaborate in your previous life of have you used this?
It was a long time ago. It was
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it was but it came back
cool.
to me as we were going through this. It made me feel like I didn't forget everything. That's great.
That's good. It's good that you're remembering things fondly and not just having dire flashbacks to your statistics courses.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, Kyle, this is David Spites again. I'm out of curiosity, we've considered building a module into Secure. I don't know if you guys know, This Republic's part of our company now. We've considered building a module into Secure, which is our exception reporting system, to do basically something like this. Is that, I don't know, it's kind of a new thought for us, but I'm just curious if that would be useful to people.
Well, from my experience in kind of cleaning up some of our exception-based reporting, we have seen the false positives going down, and we've picked up a few different true positives. So I think, exception-based reporting is very similar to analyzing something along the lines of a histogram. If you're setting up one rule on a particular variable and not considering other things that may be going on that may affect that variable of interest, you might be doing yourself a disservice with some of your exception-based reporting rules when you're not taking a more holistic view of everything. So I think this could be very helpful, and it seems like right now not a lot of the retailers are playing around with data like this. Does anyone else have any feedback on Dr. Spite's question?
Yeah, our intent would be to make it more easy to use, versus having to go in and do all this coding and getting Excel and doing all this. So, and also you guys are not usually dealing with 20 records. You're dealing with thousands, millions of records. So, it'd be a way to do this kind of modeling. And we'd probably use maybe some machine learning type stuff, some more advanced models so that we get, a better handle on like in this case, I noticed the data is pretty right skewed, so you might want to fit it with some different kinds of approaches. And we're just trying to automate it, make it simple, so it's sort of more click and drag and click, where, hey, I want to consider these variables and look at these outcomes, and then that way you're getting a, sort of a controlled exception, as you're kind of describing it, where you're controlling for 10 different variables and getting an exception once I've factored in how many hours they work, whether they're a manager or not, what type of department they work in, etc.
Yeah, I'd be very interested in checking something like that out. Okay, moving on to Matt Byerman.
No, I've not done anything like that at all either. I'm here to learn as well, but it's very interesting. I appreciate you guys putting this together.
Not a problem. I think I skipped over Lynn Joe. Lynn Joe?
Hello?
Hear you, Lynn.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't sure if this was working. Actually, I'm currently in the process of compiling the data for our regression, our urine regression, but we don't use Excel. We use SAS. And,
nice.
Yeah, we just we use the proc regression or reg function where we stepwise select, and well, we might be changing that. We're in the process of possibly testing out some new methods where we use a stepwise selection or possibly a backward selection to eliminate variables that aren't indicators, I guess, to shrink. And then applying it, we're hopefully going to apply it to a gamma function. we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, as you progress through there and you come up with some neat things, we'd very much appreciate it if you could share what you're doing with the group and possibly a future webinar. That's something to consider a little bit further down the line.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Mary McWard?
Yes, we're doing something very similar. We do a lot of regression analysis, a lot of correlation analysis, but we would present this on a scatter document because we find that our store operation team grasps the information better when you can show that most locations are tightly clustered around a norm, and then you can see your outliers better visually. So we would just present these in a little bit different graph.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's always helpful for the end user to visualize this information. I know a lot of us, if we see one more spreadsheet, our heads are going to explode. So when we can summarize this information in graphical format, it's a little more comprehensible for the various members of the store team, and it looks nice too.
Yeah, I think that we love spreadsheets, but I think that we have to think about how do we convey the message to people who are not as in love with spreadsheets as we are.
Valid point, Mary. Let's see, Michaela Guyman.
Hi. Not that I'm aware of. I don't think we've used it. I'm pretty new to the role, so from my understanding, we have not, but it's very interesting, and it could be something that I could be playing with soon.
Okay, very fun, very fun. And again, if you have any questions or need to dig deeper on something, I'm always here to help. You can always contact Stephanie, and we'll make sure that you're having as much fun as possible while trying to learn some new statistical practices.
Great, thank you, Kyle.
No problem. And finally, Jody Musto.
Hi, we do not currently use any regression analysis. I am learning the more I sit in on these calls, and I do appreciate getting the ideas of how to use this in real life, because I can't always translate, from the webinar, coming up with ideas of how to actually use this. So I do find that very helpful.
I went to the room and there's nobody there.
Yeah, and I think moving forward, that's we're going to try to link more real-life analyses, maybe use some data from our members here, just so we don't have our 20-person company-wide employees here.
Okay, great.
So, yeah, in future webinars, once we announce the topic, if this seems like something that would really resonate with you and you would like to see some work conducted on it by the LPRC with the support of the data analytics team, we're always happy to field anything you're willing to send our way.
Great.
Cool.
And thank you, Kyle. Before you wrap this up, I do have something that I want to mention here. I want to remind everyone that our Impact Conference is coming up less than 2 months. So next month we'll be dedicating the call to plan for the breakout and the poster session of the Data Analytics Working Group, and see if there are and see what are some of the work that we would like to highlight and present to the audience of the conference. And please don't forget to sign up if you haven't done so, and you can sign up through our website, or you can just contact me and I'll send you the registration and the agenda information. Like I mentioned, this is recorded, so if you ever need to come back and wrap your head around some of the things that we presented today, you can always come back to this presentation by visiting the Knowledge Center. So lastly, I want to, Kyle, do you have anything else that you would like to add to this call before I end it?
Well, I had a quick question. What is that link that you're talking about, the Knowledge Center? Is that a link you can put up?
Yes. Yes, this is
Or is it in the invite? I don't know if I looked and see if it's in the invite or not.
And who am I speaking to?
This is Matt Bierman. I actually had this meeting forwarded to me from my director, Shannon Lane at Walmart. He encouraged me to come and sit in on these meetings. So, hi. Okay,
hi, Matt. We actually, this is a repository of the LPRC that contains out of our working group call recap. We have a workspace for each of our working group and action teams, so you can find all where Kyle recaps all the associate documents that the group has put out to our members there, as well as we'll put our monthly webinars on there as well for members to review. And you can also find information about us, the articles and the research that we have done for the past 10, 15 years. Those are all on Knowledge Center. Some of you possibly remember that we have transformed from the Basecamp to now the Knowledge Center. So if you don't have that information and if you want to shoot me an email, I will be more than happy to sign you up and send you a credential and add you through our add you to the Knowledge Center so that you can see all those information. Because I don't think I have your emails or.
Probably not. Like I said, the meeting was forwarded to me from my director. I'm sure he's a member, but I'm not. So, but I am interested in becoming one.
Absolutely. You can email me at stephanie@lpresearch.org, and I'll send you all the pertinent information regarding Knowledge Center. Okay. Anybody have any questions about Impact Conference or Knowledge Center? Let me know. All right, if there's no more questions, I want to thank you, Kyle, for helping me conducting this call, and I would like to thank everybody else for taking your time and hopping on this this webinar for me. And I want to wish everybody have a great day.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Okay, thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.